This is Nightly Business Report with Tyler Matheson and Sue Herrera.
$100 billion takeover? Broadcom is reportedly planning a bid for Qualcomm in what could be the biggest deal ever in global technology.
You're hired. The job market rebounds, the unemployment rate falls, but there's a lot more to the latest jobs report than you might think.
Time for a change? How a simple watch made of wood went from a bright idea to a growing business. Those stories and more tonight on Nightly Business Report for Friday, November 3rd.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome. An enormous deal may be taking shape that could transform a critical part of the technology business. Broadcom is reportedly planning an unsolicited takeover of the rival chipmaker Qualcomm. The deal, if completed, could top $100 billion. Broadcom CEO has a history of aggressively acquiring companies to bolster growth. Now, the report sent shares of Qualcomm higher by more than 12%. It's been suffering this year. Broadcom advanced more than 5%. Dominic Chu has more on this potentially massive acquisition.
It has the potential of being one of the biggest merger deals ever in global technology. According to sources familiar with the matter, Broadcom is looking into a potential deal to buy Qualcomm. Both companies are in the business of computer chips, circuits, wireless technology, that sort of thing. And sources say that a deal could value Qualcomm at north of $100 billion, making it just about the same size as Broadcom. Now, there are a lot of reasons why this deal is getting so much investor attention. First of all, it would combine two of the world's biggest semiconductor companies, which would likely trigger antitrust concerns by regulators. Second, both companies are in the middle of making other big acquisitions of their own. What would happen to those potential deals? And there's a political angle as well. Broadcom is based in Singapore, but just yesterday, Broadcom's CEO stood alongside President Trump to announce that he was moving the company's headquarters to the United States.
America is once again the best place to lead a business with a global footprint.
That means that it could hypothetically be a U.S. company buying another U.S. company, which might have a better shot at passing government scrutiny. Now, those are just a few of the considerations, and of course, a deal may not materialize at all, but the prospects of a blockbuster deal in the tech sector is swirling all kinds of speculation, both on Wall Street and Main Street. For Nightly Business Report, I'm Dominic Chu.
The American jobs engine keeps on revving. The economy created more than 260,000 jobs last month, a welcome rebound after September's disappointing report. To show you just how strong the labor market appears to be, take a look at this. The unemployment rate now stands at a 17-year low, and the economy has created jobs for 85 straight months, the longest streak on record. Some economists are even suggesting that the labor market may be close to full employment. But as Hampton Pearson reports, others say the recent hurricanes are distorting that data.
In October, the job market recovered from the hurricanes that slammed the Southeast in September. But the addition of 261,000 jobs was less than the consensus forecast of 315,000 new hires. Those estimates were revised upward this week based on new data, forecasting strong private sector job growth, a manufacturing surge, and growing consumer confidence. One leading economist says that noise makes this month's report meaningless.
I mean, there's too much hurricane effect in this. The non-farm payroll number was a complete guess. Average hourly earnings had some hurricane effect in it.
The unemployment rate fell to 4.1%, the lowest it's been in nearly 17 years. But it fell because 765,000 people dropped out of the labor force and were not counted as unemployed. Wage growth was flat, just 2.4% year over year.
The lack of worker growth, too. I mean, the real problem we've got is that labor force is only up 0.5% per year. And we've got all these dreams of getting to 3% real GDP growth, but I don't see how you get to 3% real GDP growth unless you can find a way of increasing the labor force faster than that.
The leisure and hospitality industry saw the biggest employment swings. Hurricane shutdowns triggering a loss of 98,000 jobs in September, but a rebound of 89,000 last month. The best high-wage job growth happened among professional and business services, with 50,000 new hires. Manufacturers also added 24,000 jobs. Retail was the biggest loser, dropping 8,300 workers. Economists say despite the volatility over the last 2 months, average job gains are almost back on track with job growth before the hurricanes.
You get about 150,000 new jobs per month for the last 2 months. That's a quite good pace given where we are with such low unemployment and such modest growth of the labor force.
Those same economists say the Fed will have another month of jobs data free of hurricane-related fallout before deciding on a rate hike when monetary policymakers meet in December. For Nightly Business Report, I'm Hampton Pearson in Washington.
Ethan Harris joins us now for more analysis on the jobs report. He's co-head of global economics research at Bank of America Merrill Lynch. You think the jobs market is in very good shape?
Yeah, I think as Alan Blinder said, this is a pretty good set of numbers. I mean, obviously the hurricane caused a very weak number and a big rebound, but averaging across 2 months, the job market looks great. And the unemployment rate just keeps falling month after month. We're now down to levels that are normally associated with a fully employed economy. So, and there's no sign of the momentum fading either. So this is good news.
But you do point out the fact that there really wasn't any wage growth. How worrisome is that?
Well, I mean, I think it's a matter of time. I mean, the economy has enough momentum now that we're going to see month on month further drops in the unemployment rate. Economists have to be humble about their ability to forecast wage growth. This is something that, pinning it down on a month-to-month basis is very difficult. But if you keep pushing the unemployment rate down, the laws of gravity will come in and we'll start to see the wage pickup.
One of the sources in the piece there talked about the difficulty with the labor force being where it is, less growth, of getting to 3% economic growth over time. We've had back-to-back quarters of either 3 or 3+% growth. What do you say to that?
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, to get to 3% growth, we need to have one of two things happen. We either need to have a big productivity revolution where all this tech stuff we're doing now comes to fruition and we really see big gains in productivity, or we need to have a strong growth in population and labor force. But we haven't had strong growth in population and labor force since the 1970s, 1980s. So we can't, I think 3% just is not sustainable.
What do you think the Fed thinks about this report?
I think the Fed right now is very comfortable with the path they're on. I think that they look at how well financial markets are doing, very supportive of growth. They look at the steady drop in the unemployment rate. And this makes them feel very patient about the idea of waiting for the wage growth and waiting for the inflation. They still feel confident in that.
Very quick thought on the tax cut as you see it. How much do you think it would add, tenths of a percentage point, a full percentage point to growth?
It actually isn't a big tax cut on net. $1.5 trillion over 10 years is the 7th or 8th largest tax cut in history for the U.S. And so I would think it adds a few tenths to growth next year if we get the whole thing.
Right. Ethan, thanks.
Thank
Ethan
you.
Harris, Merrill Lynch, Bank of America Merrill Lynch. Appreciate it.
Other parts of the economy also appear to be seeing an increase in activity. New orders for U.S.-made goods rose for a second straight month in September, suggesting manufacturing activity was gathering momentum. A separate report showed companies in the services sector grew at their best rate in a dozen years. The services sector makes up the largest part of the economy.
The trade deficit widened more than expected in September, meaning the U.S. bought more goods and services from other countries than it sold to them. According to the Commerce Department, the trade gap increased to $43.5 billion. In theory, a rising trade gap reduces economic growth here, which is why trade is a major part of the president's first official trip to Asia. Mr. Trump left today on that trip and said he's looking forward to making progress on this economically sensitive topic.
And I think we're going to have great success. We'll be talking about trade. We'll be talking about, obviously, North Korea. We'll be enlisting the help of a lot of people and countries. We'll see what happens, but I think we're going to have a very successful trip. There's a lot of goodwill.
And the president will visit Japan, South Korea, China, Vietnam, and finally the Philippines.
On Wall Street, all three major indexes closed at records. The rally in Qualcomm shares, which we told you about earlier, along with a rise in the shares of Apple, helped lift the market. The Dow Jones Industrial Average added nearly 23 points to 23,539. The Nasdaq advanced 49 and the S&P 500 was up 8. For the week, all of the major indexes saw gains.
Apple was the best performing stock on the blue chip Dow index today. Its shares hit a record following the company's strong earnings and guidance report that we told you about last night. The market capitalization of Apple now very close to $900 billion. Today, Apple's iPhone 10 went on sale and long lines formed at Apple stores around the world, a sign of strong demand for the 10th anniversary smartphone.
Still ahead, Amazon's hunt for a second home.
I'm Scott Cohn. Despite the Browns, Cleveland knows how to win. It's got a vibrant economy, and it's got the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Will it also get Amazon's second headquarters? A look at Cleveland and Ohio's chances, coming up on Nightly Business Report.
Healthcare jobs are in demand, and so are jobs that focus on the health of animals. And that takes Kate Rogers to Kennett Square, Pennsylvania, to report on where the jobs are.
Michelle Barrett says she has the greatest job in the world.
We get to work outside every day with these wonderful animals.
Barrett is a dairy technical services veterinarian for a pharmaceutical company, Zoetis, that produces medicine for animals. She's tasked with managing the health of cows and advising farm veterinarians and dairy farmers on the best uses for Zoetis' products.
On one farm, we might be talking about taking care of those calves as best we can in the first day of life to get them a healthy start. On the next farm, we might be talking about a vaccine protocol and how to boost their immunity and optimize it so that we're preventing disease appropriately.
Demand for veterinary professionals like Barrett is on the rise, driven by a growing world population that places a greater emphasis on food supply and safety, as well as the booming pet care industry.
According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, opportunities for veterinarians will grow by some 18% through the year 2026, while roles for vet technicians will grow by some 20% during that same time.
Salaries can reach into the high six figures, and career options are broad-ranging, from caring for companion animals to running one's own practice and working for big pharma companies. Entering the profession requires intense training.
People often don't realize training to be a veterinarian is pretty much the same in the amount of time and expertise as to be an MD.
And admission into the vet programs is highly competitive.
In the United States, we don't have enough slots to accommodate all the students.
Brianna Parsons is currently in her 4th year of veterinary school at UPenn, studying to become a food animal vet. Her coursework includes everything from large animal surgery to dairy production medicine.
There's a lot of variation in what you can be doing, and it's kind of tailored to your interest.
After graduation, Parsons wants to focus on food safety and is hoping to run a sustainable goat farm in West Africa, a project she's been working on for 2 years.
The best part for me has been thinking more globally about health and thinking about the ways that veterinarians can be involved in things that are larger than just the individual animal. When you think about health in a more comprehensive sense, and that's what gets me excited.
For Nightly Business Report, I'm Kate Rogers in Kennett Square, Pennsylvania.
That was a nose right there. Amazon, making noses great again. Amazon has begun evaluating more than 200 proposals from cities vying to be the home of the company's second corporate headquarters. The project could bring 50,000 jobs and $5 billion in investments. As Amazon mulls its choice, we're going to take you to some of the cities that have joined the race. And Scott Cohn is in Cleveland, one of the 3 cities in Ohio that are now playing to win.
Cleveland knows a thing or two about winning, and not just last year's NBA title, beating the competition for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame 25 years ago, and last year's Republican National Convention. Amazon's new headquarters would be the biggest prize of all.
Anytime you have 50,000 potential jobs coming into a city, it's got to be important. Not only those jobs themselves, but all those other things that result in those jobs being there.
Ohio is a triple threat in the Amazon race. Cleveland, Cincinnati, and Columbus each have submitted bids. With more than 2 million people apiece, all three metro areas exceed Amazon's population requirement. But that's the easy part.
Amazon also wants a stable, business-friendly environment, a place that can attract and retain top technical talent, and a place that can think big and creatively when it comes to locations.
It means overcoming the past, according to the state's top economic development official.
So we're trying to shed this Rust Belt image, and I think we're doing that. We like to think of Ohio as part of the knowledge belt.
Ohio has diversified into fields like healthcare and financial services, and it has more higher education than all but a handful of states. But Ohio has a shortage of technical workers, a difficult legal and tax climate, and not a lot of flights. That's a key for Amazon. Officials are refusing to release details on the Ohio bids beyond the splashy videos. Ohio Governor John Kasich, who declined to be interviewed for this story, has been deliberately low-key.
If you go out and you try to buy a deal, you try to buy a company with these big incentives, I don't think you need to do it. I don't think you should do it.
But officials still say they have a shot. 3 cities, one once known as the mistake on the lake, trying to pull off a miracle. For Nightly Business Report, I'm Scott Cohn in Cleveland.
BlackBerry is reportedly in talks to provide its software to Jaguar Land Rover. That's where we begin tonight's market focus. The Wall Street Journal says that BlackBerry is in advanced conversations with Jaguar owner Tata Motors about a deal to put its software in next-generation autonomous and electric vehicles. BlackBerry's self-driving software is already in the cars of several automakers. BlackBerry shares rose 2% to $10.95. The reported merger between CVS and Aetna could happen before the end of this year. Reuters says the companies are in the process of finalizing terms and are aiming to announce a more than $70 billion deal as early as December. CVS shares were off a tick to $69.25. Aetna shares rose nearly 3% to $176.99. And Bloomin Brands, that's the operator of Outback Steakhouse, said the string of recent hurricanes significantly impacted its results. The company missed profit estimates and cut its full-year forecast. Revenue also took a hit, but it still beat estimates. Shares of Bloomin Brands were flat, ending the day at $17.30.
Sothebys reported a narrower than expected loss. Sales at the auction house also beat estimates, despite it being a slow time of year for auctions. Sothebys shares were down more than 3% to $49.42. After the bell, Berkshire Hathaway reported a drop in earnings as insurance claims from the hurricanes and an earthquake in Mexico hurt results. Operating profit also got nicked, but still came in ahead of estimates. Class A shares of Berkshire were unchanged in the extended session, but finished the regular day down 1% to $280,470.
Time now for our market monitor, who has names he says will provide some downside protection in your portfolio. The last time he was on in May, he recommended Becton Dickinson, which is up 21%, Emerson Electric, which is up 10%, and Oracle, also 10% higher. Alan Bond joins us, co-portfolio manager of the top-performing Jensen Quality Growth Fund, which is up 20% so far this year. Welcome, Alan. Nice to have you here. And congratulations on the results. You are looking for diversification and global growth with your picks. That's one of the themes anyway. Let's start with your first one, Nike. Tell me about it and why you like it.
Yes, we think Nike's an interesting story right now. Obviously one of the most well-known brands in the world. And we think it's an interesting example of the disconnect that we see sometimes between short-term market sentiment and long-term business fundamentals. Right now, Nike is dealing with some challenges, including increased competition and some change in consumer behavior. But long-term, we still see their brand as resonating powerfully with consumers around the world. We think that's a powerful competitive advantage that will reassert itself at some point, and we think recent weakness in the shares is a great opportunity for long-term investors.
Well, they're right out of your backyard, aren't they, Alan, I guess. Let's talk about MasterCard, which is your second pick. If you're going to buy some Nike gear, maybe you pull out your MasterCard.
Right, and so MasterCard, one of the world's largest electronic payment processors, and really, in our view, scale is an important part of the business. We estimate They will process more than 70 billion transactions this year, and we think that positions them very well for the global trend in which electronic transactions are increasingly displacing cash transactions. We think that poises MasterCard very well for continued growth in both net income and, importantly, free cash flow.
And we'll finish up with Cognizant Technology Solutions. You say they have a very nimble business model, which gives it a big competitive advantage.
Yeah, so Cognizant is one of the world's largest technology consulting firms, and we think they're very well positioned for the trend in which businesses around the world are using technology to make themselves more efficient. Cognizant right now is in a bit of a maturation phase itself. It's taken steps to broaden its geographic revenue base. They just started paying a dividend this year, and they're in the middle of executing on a plan to improve profitability. We think these factors will allow them to continue to grow their top line and bottom line well into the future.
Very quick thought. How do you think the market finishes the year? Strong?
Market's been strong this year, and it really feels like it's following earnings. We've seen a good pickup in earnings growth. We expect that into next year as well, so that bodes well for the market.
On that note, have a great weekend, Alan. Nice to see you. Alan Bond with the Jensen Quality Growth Fund.
And coming up, in this complex world, one entrepreneur said now's the time to simplify. His bright idea is next.
Here's a look at what to watch for next week. On Wednesday, President Trump will be in Beijing as part of his 11-day trip to Asia. He'll be having meetings with the Chinese president on security and economic issues. Also on Wednesday, the former Yahoo CEO and the current and former CEOs of Equifax are scheduled to testify on Capitol Hill on the two massive data breaches. On Thursday, Dow component Disney reports results, and investors will be focused on ESPN and the company's streaming strategy. And that's what to watch for next week.
Most of us will set back the clocks this weekend, and if you're still using an old school but still fashionable wristwatch, you might appreciate the handiwork of a Philadelphia entrepreneur who got the bright idea to design a timepiece that displays natural materials, harkening back to a simpler time in this digital world. If you make and sell wristwatches these days, you have to compete with phones, Fitbits, smartwatches. It better be good, and it ought to be different. Lorenzo Buffa's flexible wooden watch band, now that is different.
My personal interest in material development led to the world's first soft and flexible wooden watch band. Once you flatten it back out, it pretty much appears unmarred.
Wooden accessories were trending in 2012, but Buffa says wood watches then weren't up to snuff. Aiming to do better, Buffa's senior project at Philadelphia's University of the Arts led him down a twisted path, iteration after iteration, until he settled on a wood veneer backed by leather, a process he has since patented. Then, posing as a professor, he began to contact design blogs and magazines about a student who'd made something he thought they should see. The watch got some press, and manufacturers as far away as China began to contact him.
It's the kind of gumption you need as an entrepreneur, so I have total no shame.
His moxie and passion for natural materials convinced Buffa to start the Analog Watch Company. The thing is, his watches aren't analog.
We actually use quartz movements, which are battery powered. A conventional analog watch would be a mechanical watch, but we're at a lower price point.
Analog's wood watches sell for $150. That tick, tick, tick movement of the second hand is a quartz movement instead of a smooth sweep.
Analog references our desire to be focused on the simpler things. Our goal obviously is to inspire people and to add a little bit of nature to their everyday.
Say you have a piece of wood.
In 2013, Buffa got hundreds of pre-orders on Kickstarter, raising $75,000. At the time, Kickstarter had partnered with New York's Museum of Modern Art. Buyers at the museum's gift shop placed Analog's first wholesale order, Today, the business is about 60% online retail and 40% wholesale, mostly museum shops across the country.
They appreciate the ingenuity that goes into the design process, really the materials on display.
In 2015, Analog put a new material on display, marble, as well as a line of classics with watch faces made of either wood or marble. The mid-century aesthetic attracted orders from New York's Guggenheim Museum.
I barely have to sell these. The staff barely has to sell them because people really recognize them for what they are.
Gigi Luizzo helps pick products for the Guggenheim's shop.
We have to stay connected to the art in our collection or, of course, the actual building, which is a beautiful piece of art itself.
That vision belonged to architect Frank Lloyd Wright, who famously connected his work to its natural surroundings. His circular design and use of light, both inspired by nature, turned museum architecture inside out. Nature inspires Bufa's work, too. There are wooden sunglasses now and a botanist collection of watches and jewelry featuring real flowers encased in resin. Frank Lloyd Wright, he's not, but perhaps Bufa's time is yet to come.
And we've been able to carve some space for us because we're really creating conversation pieces, or what some of our museums call wearable works of art.
Really beautiful pieces, aren't they? Bufa was just 12 when he started his first online venture, creating logos for small businesses across the country. And for his next trick, he's working on a product using cork. And there's a social good element here. Analog contributes to causes like Trees for the Future and Earthworks every time it sells a wooden or marble watch. I think we probably helped him sell some Christmas gifts
tonight. We might have a few stocking stuffers, if you will.
Really lovely.
I'm a watch person. I know you are too. So maybe that'll be in your stocking. Who knows? That does it for us tonight. I'm Sue Herrera. Thanks for joining us.
And I'm Tyler Matheson. Thanks from me as well. Have a great weekend, everybody, and we will see you right back here on Monday.